So here we go. We have got 2 hibiscus plants here in these little pots, and I actually got these for a steal at my local DIY store because all the blossoms were missing or had fallen off, and they were a little dry looking, so I got them for a really good deal. These were actually $3 a piece. And so this is about the size that you want if you're looking to bonsai an existing plant and not grow some from seed. If you're growing from seed, you know, obviously you're gonna work from a much smaller pot into a larger pot and then do your bonsai training about 3 to 4 months in to that plant's growth cycle. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing you're going to do when you decide to bonsai is you want to look at the overall structure of the plant that you're working with. And you know, bonsai training is an art form, and it is about creating this beautiful shape out of a plant, but you have to see a natural shape there to start with. So that's the first thing you want to do. And so my plant has a natural sway to one side, so I'm really wanting to accentuate that once I transfer it into the pot, into the bonsai training pot. And so that's something that you have to consider, and I suggest that you do that beforehand, before you do any trimming or cutting or transplanting or anything. Now you may be at this point looking at this plant and going, that is a very large pot to be putting in such a small bonsai tray. But when you think about that, a good percentage of what's in that pot is roots and soil, and bonsai have a very limited root structure. That's what helps them stay that miniature size, and they don't have a lot of soil. So at this point, I want to point out that your bonsai will have tendencies to want to dry out because they are in such a shallow pot. So you really need to watch the moisture levels. Hibiscus are also, they like moist soil. So you're especially going to have to be vigilant if you choose a hibiscus for this project, but especially because the tray is so shallow. So the first thing you want to do is to get your tray and place your piece of plastic mesh in the tray. And if you'll notice, there's actually 2 holes in the bottom of your tray here, and that is for your wire. And I like to go ahead and lay the plastic in first, kind of like you're sewing, and then thread the wire in from there. So you'll just thread it in through the holes here and pull it out the top. And I try to find the halfway point on my wire. When you go to clip your wire, because this comes in a spool, you know, I took about 2 feet here, 18 inches to 2 feet, just, you know, for safety reasons, to be on the safe side. Not really safety reasons, but be on the safe side. And so you're going to thread it through like antlers, and you just want to make sure that the wire lays flat on the bottom, that you push it flat on the bottom, and then you're just, at this point, you're going to act like the wire's not there, and you're going to bend it out to the side like this. I like to twirl mine like little tendrils. It helps them stay out of the way when you go to transplant the plant into the pot. So just like this. Nothing fancy. It should look like this. You got it, Blonde Botany Babe-ette? Mm-hmm. Alright. So once you have this step done, then we're ready to unearth our plant and begin the bonsai training process. So basically you're just going to tip your plant out of the pot. And if you guys notice, there's a lot of root mass in there. This plant has been in this pot quite a while, and I don't really need all that. So I'm just going to very gently pull away at it until I can see the core root of this plant. The core roots, which are the roots closest to the center of the plant. And you kind of want to take your fingers, they make rakes for this that you can actually pull away at the soil. But do you see that big tap root right there? That you want to make sure not pull that off, because I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with that in a minute. And you know, this is kind of a dirty process, but you gotta just want to loosen the earth around the plant. This one was really close to being root bound if it wasn't already root bound. But okay, you just want to shake, shake, shake. This is a messy process. I'm not worried about this. Just push it off to the side. We may not be able to bonsai the Blonde Botany Babe-ette. So I think her plant's got some really thick roots happening over there. And you know what's great about this project is, you know, it's something that kids will find interesting. You want it to be about that big. Kids will find this interesting. Kids like small things. All right, so once you have your plant looking like this, we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is where the fun part comes in. So what causes bonsai, to be miniaturized, is that you've restricted the growth of the plant considerably by restricting the amount of root mass it can form. And so in this case, this plant has already formed a lot of roots, and so don't be alarmed if your plant seems to go through shock, because it will go through shock. It's inevitable. You've just taken a huge chunk of its root mass off, and it's good. And so it's going to freak out a little bit. So at this point, we're going to take our pruners, and we're just going to trim up some of these longer roots, just taking them off. And if you noticed while I was talking, I actually split this guy into 2 pieces. So I'm actually going to give a piece of this to the Blonde Botany Babe-ette and let her use it. And we'll do something else with this guy. But so if you look, this really big taproot here, or this big chunky root, we just want to limit him, because that's the way a plant takes in a good portion of what it needs, as well as these tiny little what's called adventitious roots to the side. So we're just going to trim, and you don't want to take off a whole lot in the beginning. So you'll repot this guy at least twice a year in the beginning, and then maybe once a year after that. But the point of this root trimming is to limit the plant's ability to grow much larger than what it is now. And so you just want to trim those roots up kind of to where they'll actually fit into the pot. If they fit into the pot nicely, you found a good size. So I'm going to go ahead and unreel some of my wire here. This wire is to help train the tree if you want it to bend or bow to one side, but in the beginning it can be very helpful for actually holding the plant upright in the pot until it establishes itself. So I don't know if you guys saw that, but I just wrapped my wire through the little V there, or you could wrap it around the base of the tree one direction and then around the other to kind of stabilize it, right? And so I've got some potting mix here, just a standard potting mix. I don't know if you can see that. And I've added some additional perlite to this just for the aeration. Seems to work well with bonsai. And you're just going to fill in the pot. Now, I have seen a few people make heaping pots where they heap the soil. And that's fine. But typically, if you're going to do that, you'll want to put some moss spores down to grow, to help the soil stay in that mounded fashion. All right, so the Blonde Botany Babe-ette is filling hers. Like I said, this is a fun and dirty process to do with your kids. You may have to help them with the trimming and the scissors, of course, depending on their age. But most kids like to get their hands dirty. You may want to put a little bit more in there. Alright, so once again, like I always say, make sure that you do not press the soil. Those air pockets in your soil are very important. But you can go ahead and water your plant. That kind of helps the soil settle a little bit. So if you're curious whether or not you need to add some more soil, go ahead and water it pretty liberally, and that will tell you, did I get the soil right? So I got the soil right, and you can see how much it's draining through those holes. That's what those the little trays are that it comes with, will hold some of that moisture, because bonsai, because you've limited their roots, and they're kind of small and in a shallow dish. You know, you have to make sure that they're not drying out. So now that you've got this done, you can kind of tuck your wires down underneath your bonsai tray. Now, in one of my blogs, we discussed something called a root-shoot ratio. And plants try very hard to keep equal root-shoot ratios. And so we have just greatly limited this plant's root mass. So we're going to want to trim the top half a little bit too, about equal portions to what we took off the bottom, minus, you know, the soil. There's a lot of soil there. So this is when really shape becomes a personal choice, as well as the natural shape of your plant. Alright, so I went ahead and opened the pruning compound, and you guys could just see how sticky that looks. It looks like green putty in there. So we're going to put a dab of this on the cuts that we make to the plant. So I'm going to actually trim this side branch off right here. I want to kind of form mine into more of a tree-like shape. So you want to make your cut leaving several centimeters, so that the standard dieback that happens when you make a cut can happen without affecting the main trunk of your tree. And as you guys saw, I just took some of the pruning compound and I dabbed it onto where I made the cut, and that's good enough. What you're doing by using the pruning compound is you're sealing the wound. It's like a band-aid, because that cut will allow water to come out. What plants do is transpire, and it will allow transpiration to occur out of that wound, which will further add to the drying out and shock process of this plant. So we really want to make sure that we use the pruning compound. And let's see, where else do I want? I'm going to take this guy because he really doesn't have anything growing on him. I'm just going to put a little dab of pruning compound. And at this point, it's just really aesthetics. You're looking to see, you know, how do I want my plant to look? And don't make a lot of cuts very early. Take, you know, as much as you need to maintain the root-shoot ratio, and then leave it at that, because as time goes on and this plant grows, it's going to fill out a little bit and take on a different shape, and you may want to make further adjustments. And if you've taken too much too early, you won't be able to do that. So is that the only cut you're going to make, Blonde Botany Babe-ette? Alright, so I'm just looking at mine, seeing if there's anything else I might want to remove. And I think I'm going to take this little guy down here too. I make a cut and just dab my pruning compound. So like I said, at this point it's all aesthetics. It's whatever you like and whatever you want your bonsai to look like. I'm pretty happy with the general shape of this plant already. That's why I chose it. So I don't feel the need to do a lot of pruning at this juncture. Don't be alarmed in the next few weeks to a month that your plant looks unhappy. Do not abandon your plant because the leaves are browning or they're falling off. You will notice after a few weeks that smaller leaves come and take its place as those larger leaves fall off. And that is part of the bonsaiing process. The leaves actually get smaller alongside the shortening of the plant and the dwarfing of the plant. So my trimming is done here. What about you? You done? Alright. The Blonde Botany Babe-ette is done as well, and she's even made a little a little graveyard here for the cut pieces. Now, those of you that watched my Pope Stick propagation video, you could actually propagate those clippings, guys. Get you some rooting hormone. Super easy. So this is the first step of creating your bonsai at home. So you just want to keep it moist, keep it watered, keep an eye on it to make sure no pests are bothering it. Do not fertilize these guys. You will fry them because they're like babies with a cold at this point. And if you go in and you try to fertilize them and give them steak and not milk, they will not do very well. So no fertilizer for now. We'll do an updated video as these guys start to look better after they go through their adjustment phase. But it's the Blonde Botany Babe here with the Blonde Botany Babe-ette, and we are hailing to you from the bonsai house, and we've created this bonsai. This is a hibiscus bonsai. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about bonsaiing or plants or gardening, please post them in the comments below.